Good evening. I hope, yeah, that works. So, ladies and gentlemen, I suppose brothers and sisters, friends, maybe even a few comrades, since I think it's coming in vogue, judging by Dr. Diane's recent articles. It's a pleasure to be here, part of this panel. I have to say that I know we're not supposed to focus too much on Dr. Diane, but as someone who's been reading his work for about 20 years, maybe more, as I read, even when I was reading this book, the first draft of it, I had to keep open the internet browser and have references because reading Dr. Wijetilleke is always, oh, the mic's gone off. I hope I can be heard all the same, is that okay? So reading Dr. Wijetilleke is always a little bit of a challenge because he's an expert in his field and I'm a novice. So while he's here, it's good to ask him as many questions as you can. I'm sure you have many questions given how many interventions he makes regularly. We've already discussed briefly, we mentioned that he is sort of at the vanguard of the current Marxist-Leninist movement in Sri Lanka, at least in terms of his writing in some form. And I think the conversation about vanguardism is one I'd like to have, for instance. Also, even though I would call Dr. Diane Wijetilleke my favorite political writer, and even though we have very similar political sympathies and tendencies, I would presume the chances of us voting the same way in any election, virtually zero. Virtually zero. I have unfortunately had to vote for the UNP and the current president in every election, except the last one maybe, so that's probably 95% of all elections. You can beat me over the head with that if you like, can't help it now. But then again, Dr. Diane Wijetilleke has also supported a vast array of political movements in Sri Lanka, and I think to some of us there may seem inconsistencies or some kind of contradiction, so maybe we can explore some of that as well. So I won't take too long here, but it's my job to sort of moderate this conversation, and I invite the entire audience to be as open and express your opinions freely. And I'm sure there's been some opinions that Dr. Diane has come up with that you don't agree with, so maybe this is a time to pick a few bones or rattle a few cages. Just be as open as you can, and I'll try to lead things in that way. But before I hand things over to members of the audience, I want to ask my colleague on the panel to just sort of kick things off. So Natasha, is it okay if I hand things over to you? There you go. I think the mics, I'm just going to